Welcome to TeqTalk, the tech-focused podcast where we unpack how enterprise and technology leaders are shifting to agentic future of work, where AI, platforms, and multi-agent systems are changing how businesses get done. I am your host, Jess Carr, CTO at TechFocus, and today I'm honored to welcome Sherrod Patching, the VP of Global Customer Success at GitLab. Sherrod leads the teams that help GitLab customers realize value from their DevSecOps platform investments and turn those into business outcomes, not just renewals. Thank you so much, Sherrod, for joining the show. Really pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Great. Sherrod, before we actually go ahead and start and deep dive into our current topic, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell us a bit about your journey, your key milestones that has really shaped your path into, senior leadership, into customer success area.
No problem. I actually come from a history, people will have potentially heard this before, but I actually come from a background in music. So I studied as a musician, moved to London when I was 18, wanted to be kind of famous and had a path there and worked as a musician for about 10 years. Like many musicians, I also had a job. And so I ended up kind of working in fitness and running first front of house and being promoted to general manager. And I kept being promoted and getting larger and larger teams on that side. Was running kind of a 50,000 square foot facility when I was in my 20s. And my music did well. So I look back and I genuinely gave it my all. And so I don't look back and wish I had tried harder. I did. But I got to 30 and had said, I can see my career just going from strength to strength, actually in leadership. And in music, I'm doing okay. I'm paying bills, but it's not, I wasn't on the fast path to fame. And so at that point, I decided to pivot. I actually fell into digital initially, a digital agency, was brought in to lead a team and ended up actually leading that agency. And then from there, got into tech. So that was, almost 20 years ago. So I've been in tech ever since and been on that journey, but I have just sort of seen my career go from strength to strength. I think to your question on milestones, I think a lot of it for me has been just grit and really finding opportunities and taking on more and more, being really eager and curious, which I think is critical for anyone, and particularly on customer side. And then I think some of it's just luck, being in the right time at the right place or right place at the right time. But I think it comes in partnership with grit and a curiosity and just a willingness to really sign up for things, but also to execute.
Great. That's pretty impressive and pretty diverse. The career journey. So tell me a little bit about music. Are you still practicing? Are you a singer or, playing some instrument? What exactly into the music?
I was, yeah. So I studied voice. I worked as a singer. There are random white label house tracks out there somewhere with me on them. But these days I live vicariously through my daughter. So I have a 10-year-old daughter who's very musical. So she does piano and sings, and that's kind of my primary avenue. So it's fun to kind of get to watch her go on that similar journey.
Yeah, so the interest has been passed on to next generation. We would love to hear your tracks if they're available. So that's going to be interesting. Let's zoom out into how customer success as a function has really changed, right? Let's talk about the broader picture. Over last decade or so, CS has basically changed a lot and dramatically, I would say that. Historically, customer success functions were often seen as, support and renewals. But today, if we talk about customer success, it is like as good as a strategic partner to the business, right? Yeah. So teams, they rely more on predictive health and digital plus AI programs. And it's way beyond what it used to be before a decade. So from your vantage point at GitLab and across the industry, tell me how CS function has evolved over 10 years.
10 years is a long time. I think I'd say when I first started out, so I've been in CS kind of as it's been coined for probably somewhere around 15 years. And so I would say your point to begin with, it was a lot about just kind of onboarding and getting a customer maybe into the product, but very feature function. Yeah. And then that has evolved over time to the notion of success plans and having a plan with a customer. And then those success plan evolve from having a plan to really being committed to the outcomes. And for now, for us, looks like customers actually getting to those outcomes. We hold ourselves accountable as CSMs, as renewal managers to those customer outcomes. So we have targets for how many per year we want customers to realize, recognizing that it's really about our platform is a vehicle for their their desires and their business outcomes. No one ever becomes a customer just for the sake of learning features and functions. Not typically, not at our size. I think the challenge for us as we expand and mature is but I think that's fairly table stakes. I would say that probably a lot of sales or success leaders are on a similar place of being very outcomes focused. But then how you do that at scale across multiple customer segments for us, I believe, is the challenge that we're faced with now. And how do you do more with less? And so that kind of brings in agentic and some of the automation pieces. How do you get to a place where the long tail customer has a similar experience to the customer that pays us millions of dollars and build more consistency? And so I do think that's the opportunity for us and kind of the challenge area and what is we're seeing agentic really disrupting the most.
Absolutely. And what do you think are the major trends that has driven that shift?
Towards outcomes?
Yes.
Well, probably the competitive landscape. I think customers, they can be selective. So they have the opportunity to walk away from your business. I would say that we're seeing a lot of those pieces. I do think there have been macroeconomic changes that have forced us to really prove how we can drive value. As we start to look at, we don't just have a plethora of headcount anymore. We need to be mindful about cost. And with that happening kind of in a macroeconomic, CS is a place that hasn't always had a direct contribution to dollars. We haven't always had a seat at the table. We haven't always been directly attributed to anything beyond maybe the renewal rate, and sometimes not even directly the renewal rate either. So I think signing up for a number, both on the renewal rate as well as on the kind of the bookings and the revenue side, has been for us and has kind of driven. And to do so, you need to be very outcomes focused.
Yes, I completely agree to it. And one of the biggest themes we emphasize at TeqFocus in our organization is that renewals are necessary, but it's not sufficient, right? We believe the predictive health, value proofs, all those outcomes are very important. And there are a lot of metrics available in the market which we can follow, like DORA 4 and different other matrices. So how do you think GitLab has defined and communicated value beyond renewal management? If you have a couple of examples which can elaborate in a wider place and help our audience understand, would be great to have.
So there are a number of different ways that our customers look at value. But one, to your point around DORA 4, is we oftentimes see customers coming in looking to increase time to market. So they're looking to get to market faster. So that could look like cycle time, lead time for change, some of those things going more quickly. And the way we can look at that is typically kind of release cadence and cycle time. So we've seen customers as a result of bringing disparate teams that oftentimes have kind of siloed functions all onto the GitLab platform. We're seeing productivity or time to market increase by kind of 20x. And we see numbers about to that degree fairly often, where they're able to reduce cycle time from, once a quarter or once every 6 months, even into kind of a matter of days as a result of bringing in consulting processes. So cycle time is one. I would say another one is kind of around efficiencies. So with GitLab, you're able to take some of the incumbent tooling, each which comes with a price tag, and then consolidate that into one experience and also one cost. And so we see a lot of uplift from customers who are able to cut back on hundreds of thousands of spend, if not millions, depending on customer size, by consolidating some of what they do, not all, but some of what they do onto the GitLab platform and driving efficiencies that way.
Yeah, of course, when you have talked about AI, a lot has been changed over the time, right? As we have seen that AI has really disrupted and changed the ecosystem completely. So let's talk a little bit about AI in customer success. Let's separate the hype from what actually works. Let's zoom it on AI. We are at the tipping point where AI is not only the product feature, but increasingly it's a part of CS engine itself, right? So where do you think this AI is really helping CS? Is it on onboarding, insights, risk prediction, or somewhere else?
Yeah, for us at GitLab at this point, I can say kind of what I'm seeing in the market. Where we're using it primarily the moment is insights and risk prediction. So those are the two primary. And a lot of the insights can be the aggregate. So if you think about Gong calls and Zendesk tickets and all of the different places where you can have this disparate view of a customer that when you bring them together gives you a much more holistic understanding of where that customer is, where their strengths are and where they're struggling. So we aggregate all those data sets and work with our data team to build kind of an agentic layer on top that allows us to see what are customers asking for at scale, how does that by geo and by segment, and then how does that overlay with our product roadmap and where are the gaps. So that's one of the key use cases for us that we have at the moment kind of at a roll-up level. And then down at the IC level, then what are we seeing through through data, through sentiment, then can be rolled up into predictive scoring that would allow us to better understand the propensity to either expand or to contract. And we use those particularly in the long tail where you're not actively talking to the customer at the same cadence and you're much more reliant on data.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we are also seeing that AI is really helping CS teams onboard faster, right? Spot risk sooner, suggest the next best actions for each account. So would you like to touch base on those, how it's happening at GitLab and what are you seeing in the industry overall?
Yeah, you bet. So at GitLab, as we think about onboarding, it kind of depends on the use case where the customer is.
Yeah.
So a lot of us is taking them on journeys that are kind of very content centric. So identifying where they are, the persona that they are, and then taking them on that journey. And then we augment some of that with a lot of it with AI in GitLab. So we have our own product called the Duo agent platform. We have a chat functionality that allows you to ask questions in the context of your instance, and then takes you on a journey that's toward documentation that is appropriate to you and is appropriate to your instance. And I would say in the marketplace, there's a lot of interesting tooling out there. I was actually at a roundtable with a number of other CCOs last week, week before, and a lot of us are piloting a lot of things and trying various different things, with the nirvana being kind of how do you have that CSM-like experience that I was alluding to across all of your customer base. We have a significant long tail. And so I don't know that there is a particular product that has completely disrupted it yet, but we're seeing so many that are on that journey. I think in the next 12 months, we'll see a lot of emergence of companies that are really disrupting that and doing meaningful kind of change in onboarding times for customers.
Yeah, and I think it is really winning because the overall workflows are getting impacted and not only tools, right? Like connect usage, support data, flag, overall workflow is getting impacted in a better way. So that's great to know. And let's talk a little bit about delivering value at GitLab, right? On the product side, and let's bring it to home at GitLab's CS structure and how you operationalize value delivery. Could you walk us through how GitLab CS organization is structured? Like there are a lot of roles we are seeing coming up in the market, right? As AI has really popped up. So like customer success managers, architects, customer success engineers, and what all roles still exist and what all new roles you are seeing that coming up?
So today we have architects, to your point, managers and engineers. We have a product called Success Tiers, which is a 3-tiered kind of option that you can buy into that gives you different support SLAs and different levels of kind of technical expertise and depth. Also different levels of kind of product acceleration and customization of enablement content. So our architects work with two of our tiers. Our customer success managers work with one of our tiers. And then our customer success engineers are doing a lot of the first order onboarding and the kind of the pooled. So our goal with all of them is that we get customers to the outcomes. How we get them there looks a little bit different depending on which tier you're a part of and kind of who you engage with. But value looks a little different. Some may be more feature function in the long tail. Like, did we get them to consume the thing they bought? With a customer that we have an architect working with and is going very deep, it could look very much like a transformation roadmap and meeting some of those critical milestones. Mm-hmm. So I would say value varies, but ultimately we are looking to ensure that we are aligned with that value across all of those segments. Mm-hmm. We also have professional services, which is a part of our success team here, who is very closely aligned with the customer success teams on ensuring that we are getting customers to the accelerated value. We can see that when customers engage with our services teams, that they typically get to growth kind of 40% faster. So you can use that as a proxy for kind of time to first value, time to fully realize value, and then time to kind of expansion. So those two teams together, I think, are critical for the success of a customer.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the use cases related to AI, which you're really seeing working like charm and you would like to continue. And let's talk first about the use cases. Those are working greatly, and then we'll pop up into the ones which are still in the struggle phase across industry.
So which tooling am I seeing that's working quite well from the CS AI to understand?
Yeah, from the CS AI. And if you can share some examples from your organization that these are some of the initiatives you took in CS side, then they really went well when you clubbed AI on top of it.
No problem. I probably won't speak to third-party vendors that we're working with. They're still kind of our POC stage with some, and others we're fully implemented with. I probably won't name names, but we do have a data team here that we have our own AI solution. A lot of what we do is actually, so we have built an agentic layer on a lot of what we do internally. We actually manage all customers who have a success plan in GitLab. So each customer has a mutually agreed success plan in GitLab. And then we have Duo, which is our agentic product that goes over top, that it can help us determine whether or not we have the right outcomes in place, kind of progress over time. So that's something that we're building. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's kind of where we are in our journey currently.
Great. What are some of the use cases you're seeing in the market in the CS space, which you think is not going to work well, if you have something in the mind?
I don't know. It was interesting. I was at a conference. So we have recently launched a forward deployed engineer offering. So I was at a conference speaking with someone from Salesforce who leads one of the FDE teams there. We were both talking about our FDE offerings. And at the time, somebody in the audience was asking about agentic and the long tail, but to the point where agentic can actually kind of make decisions. And then what does that mean when you have a third party plugged in? I think that's still very much unknown for us. So we have our own agentic that we're working with customers on. But when you start considering bringing in third party and giving that control over the decision, that probably is kind of the least tapped, I would say, of some of the products that we have seen. I definitely think that as you begin to give more control to third party, then it opens up some questions there on how we want to address that as an organization. So I wouldn't say it's not going to work, and I would probably watch this space 12 months from now be working well. I would say for us, that's not something that we're considering at the moment because there's too much risk.
Thank you so much. And let's talk a little bit about what are you seeing? What is your vision in coming 6-12 months?
We do have a customer success platform. We use Gainsight. I think that's fairly well known. They do have a level of AI that they use, and we have access to those features. But from the POC standpoint, I think that's probably a little early for us. Well, maybe one of the pieces that I would point out is I spent some time at TSIA with one of my team members last week. We attended a workshop on monetizing CS. And I think that the monetization of CS, I've alluded to it a little bit through our conversation. I think that can sometimes be perceived as a bit of a dirty word of, you've got the CSM that we used to invest in, now we're going to charge you for it. Yeah. And that's really not been our experience, nor is it what we're offering. And so for us, I think the workshop was very good for challenges of where we're going to go next year and how we continue to evolve that offering. But it was also really good validation that we're on the right track. And a lot of what we kind of was shown there as best practice, we had a good portion of. So I would say that as, particularly as team members, we continue to go through interesting economic times. And I think sometimes CS headcount can be on the chopping block, to be quite frank, as kind of it is a cost. And there are, a lot of conversations around the value that it drives. And as you begin to look around, A, tying yourself to outcomes, tying yourself to revenue, but then B, the monetization strategy. And so for us, the way that we were able to kind of convert some of our existing customer base, easy with new customers, harder with existing, into the paid offerings was by rolling out a set of offerings that were able to bring incremental value. So for us, that looked like the CSA role that wasn't available prior, that can go deep with the customer on customized enablement, customized training, kind of product accelerators. We brought in a white glove support offering that didn't exist, access to a design support engineer. We brought in support SLAs. This next year, we'll bring in the FDE that I mentioned, that forward deployed engineer as an option to bring in. We have a couple of those that we're actively have sold and are working with customers on. It's been a lot of fun. And then there are other kind of add-ons, upgrade services, kind of managing your infrastructure for you at scale on quarterly refreshes. So we've been able to find things that are renewable, that are actually taken as ARR because they are an annual renewing contract, that not only bring additional value to our customers, so they are more healthy and adopting better, but also too is able to bring money back into our organization that allows us to be somewhat more self-funded. I would say in the next 10 years, gosh, I don't know. I wouldn't predict.
It's hard, right? It's hard to even predict what's going to happen in coming months.
It is. 10 years feels like a really long time. I don't know. We'll probably be living on another planet. But the pace that we're at, I'm super excited for the value that we'll be able to bring to customers. I honestly think even in the next 12 months, we'll be able to do things for customers that we never dreamed of. And that's exciting.
Yeah, probably you'll see more automations, more reduction of manual tasks, and more value to be provided to the customers in coming months. But that's again on very generic high level.
That's right. Yeah. I think there's a lot of kind of nirvana too in customer success around like the next best action based on what you were looking to do. What is the next best step? And that's really hard to do. There are a number of platforms and CS platforms and marketing automation platforms that strive to get there. I think they struggle. And so I do think that is kind of the next area that we can expand into with agentic, is being able to get a much more customized path for customers based on their goals and objectives and their current kind of infrastructure and ecosystems.
Absolutely. Truly. Completely agree with you, Sherrod. Thank you so much. It was a terrific conversation. Thanks for sharing all your experience and examples. I'm pretty sure all our listeners would be glad and honored to have your voice on the show. And with that said, I would like to wrap up.
Thank you, Jazz. Thanks for having me.